Oh, right. Afternoon, everyone. I don't get the cheer when I say hi. It's reinforcing what Sean said. I just look too threatening, which is what she said. We've got on the screen just now, that's QR code for these slides. They're available in HTML, should be accessible. There's loads of links in there and stuff, so you can use that and link to the various different resources that we're going to talk about.
And say the link too.
Okay, just to say the link as well, it's w3.org/talks/WAI/accessu-WAI.html. So much easier. We're really keen to make this interactive with everyone that's in the room. So if you've got questions, we'd really like to hear them. We've got a big session at the end for Q&A. So please do, any questions that you've got, throw them out. I think we'd like to use that as an opportunity really to have a conversation and a dialogue in this session. We've got a bit at the start, but hopefully we can do a lot of time on that. We've also got people online on the YouTube channel. There's a Q&A feature in the Zoom online. If you use the Q&A feature, if you're online, just ask questions there, and Mark will be fielding those, and we'll kind of answer those as well. Was that everything in that one, Mark? Oh yeah. Also online, you can also raise your hand if you not quite sure with the Q&A thing. Okay, cool. So I'm going to hand over to Sean to start the thing.
Cool. So we're here to talk about advancing digital accessibility with W3C, WAI, the Web Accessibility Initiative. As you heard, Ashley, we pronounce it as WAI. Unfortunately, screen readers pronounce it as Y. But it's the way, it's not why. It's the way. Okay. I'm Sean Henry, and I'm the WAI program lead. And Kevin White is the accessibility technical lead.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, he doesn't remember his title, so I decided I better do it. So, right. Great. So we're here to share some information with you and then answer your questions and also get suggestions from you. So let's dive right in. For those who don't know, the W3C is the World Wide Web Consortium. It's the organization that develops the standards for the web. So, you know, all from way back, HTML and CSS and all the standards, and a lot more now are developed through W3C. W3C was established at MIT years ago by Tim Berners-Lee, Sir Tim Berners-Lee, the inventor of the web. And we have partners then in ERSAM Research Consortium in France, at Keio University in Japan, and at Beihang University in China. And what you may not know is a couple years ago, W3C spun out of MIT, so it's now a separate public interest nonprofit. Now, within W3C, we have the Web Accessibility Initiative, WAI, as I said. And the really cool thing about that is that since 1997, accessibility has been integrated in all that we do at W3C. So not a lot of organizations can say that. We make sure that all the standards that come out of W3C support accessibility. And we'll mention this a little later, but this is one of the key focuses we have in communicating accessibility is the tagline, accessibility is essential for some and useful for all. And we'll show you some videos later that illustrate that. Great. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Kevin for a bit.
Okay, so one of the things we're very keen on is for broad participation with the community. Most of the work that we do is with partner organizations and member organizations, invited experts, but also more broadly with the community. So these are just some of the ways that you can sort of support and participate in the work that we do without being a member, without being an invited expert, just being someone that's interested and find something that's interesting, useful, wrong, now and again. and feeding into that, because the quality of the work that we do really does depend on input from the whole community. So we've got there's a link there which goes to, we've got a page which we try to keep current on a monthly basis, which talks about everything that we're working on. So all of the different working groups that we've got and the standards that we're working on and any of the resources that we're working on and developing. You can help improve those resources and standards. I think all of our pages internally in the WAI website itself, at the bottom of the page, there's a help improve this page link. It goes, mostly everything we do runs in GitHub. So you can, if you're comfortable with GitHub, you can put in issues, you can raise a PR against sort of the material, you can do any of those sorts of things. It gets to us and we try and deal with that. For the bigger resources like the WCAG 2, WCAG 3, the ARIA, WCAG to mobile, whatever it is, again, all of those are produced in GitHub. They're all open to the public. Anyone can come along, they can look at the discussions that are going on, they can raise an issue against it, they can raise a PR. So that's open. We're very keen for people to contribute into all of those areas. We've also got a number of community groups that are very associated, closely associated with accessibility. The community groups within W3C are a feature that we set up a few years back. And what they do is allow interested people to get together. They provide a platform for discussion, for development of ideas, and for propagating of ideas up into the standards organization as a whole. I'll talk about a couple of the community groups just in a minute. Finally, there's the WAI interest group, which Ashley is the chair of. This is a discussion forum where, again, we've got about 1,000, 1,500 something members. And it's basically any questions that you've got around about accessibility, you can raise up there. And there are loads of really, really knowledgeable people who do respond and kind of point people in the right directions and help out there. So you can join that interest group as well. I'm not allowed control, am I? Thank you. So I talked about the community groups. So just to talk through the accessibility ones. First one's, there's an accessibility roles and responsibilities mapping resource, which we've been working on for a while. Sean's going to talk about that a little bit more, but there's a community group built up around about that, which is looking to develop that resource. This is pretty much does what it says in the tin. It kind of talks about how accessibility fits across the different roles within a digital development team. We've also got advancing accessibility resources. This community group's looking at sort of more of the informational resources that are available and that we are make available through the WAI website and the educational materials that we've got there, and looking at how do we develop those further and what they can become. Accessibility for children, which I don't know as much about, but does what it says in the tin and looking to explore that topic. And then accessibility internationalization is looking at how do the accessibility resources that we have translate, or how do they come across in different international contexts, whether that's cultural or language or whatever other problems in terms of how they're going to be presented. So all of these community groups, anybody can join those and participate in those. And indeed, if you've got an interest and a group of people interested, you can actually start your own community group. So just a quick word on WCAG. It's going to be very quick because there's some doubt now and again expressed, but WCAG 2 is very much alive and well and not going anywhere in a hurry. We're working through a backlog of issues with WCAG 2 to continually improve the resources that explain WCAG 2. Now and again, we bump into something which might be a normative change. We may or may not pick up on that one, but WCAG 2 is definitely alive and well. WCAG 3 is under development and will be for a while. We're continually publishing drafts. So we're seeking to publish a draft every 6 months. Next one's due June time-ish. And there's we're also looking at how we're communicating our planning. All of the discussions around about WCAG 3 again are happening in GitHub. So feel free to go and look in there. Feel free to have a look at the document as itself and contribute to that. But certainly WCAG 3 is something that's continually developing. Okay, I'm going to hand back to Sean.
Awesome. Okay. What we want to do next is just highlight a few resources that we think are either new, you may not know about, or particularly relevant to a lot of folks here. So there's many, many resources on a broad range of topics throughout the WAI website, and we encourage you to explore and go look at that. But we'll highlight a few of them right now. So the first one is a set of resources we called Accessibility is About People. Right. So, you know, we're the W3C, we write standards. And yeah, standards have a role, but it's important to realize the goal is not to meet the standard. The goal is to make your product more accessible for people with disabilities. And so we've kind of quite throughout the years, we've had different resources that address that. But we just brought that up a level. We have some more resources, and we're just highlighting that to make sure, hey, even the standards organization says the standards or tool, the goal is to make real user experiences accessible for more people. So let me just show you where to find those. See if this works. Great. So I'm at the WAI homepage. It's w3.org/WAI. And from the main navigation, the first item is Accessibility Fundamentals. And then there's a section on Accessibility is About People. It starts out with just a paragraph basically explaining what I just said. Then we have a series of videos called the Web Accessibility Perspectives to explore the impact and benefits for everyone. And it was in developing these videos that we came up with that tagline, accessibility is essential for some and useful for all, because that's what the videos do. So it's a series of 10 videos on different topics, like there's one on contrast, there's one on text customization, and it talks about, they demonstrate how it's essential, this thing is essential for people with disabilities, but hey, guess what? It's also useful for other people in different situations. Each video is about 1 minute long, and there's a compilation that's like 7 minutes long. So we tried to make them really short and snappy. So I encourage you to, take a look at those and use them, use them in your presentations, however they'll be useful to you. We also have a resource on how people with disabilities use the web, and we updated that a 1.5-ish ago. And that now, again, if you haven't taken a look at that, take a look. We have videos going along with user stories. So examples of user stories, a page on the techniques and tools that people use and barriers and abilities that they face. So there's different resources in that pages in that resource. And again, new videos, relatively new videos that go along with that. So those are the things I wanted to highlight in that page. So again, we agree accessibility is about people. The next thing I wanted to talk a little bit more about what Kevin introduced, the accessibility roles and responsibilities mapping, which has a nice acronym of ARM, right? So ARM. ARM was been in development for a long time, actually, and it's been presented at Access U in the past as well. So we got it to the group working on it. It was originally under the Education and Outreach Working Group, which Sharon was chair of for many years. And that is now available as a draft. So we're really excited. So what it does, it helps you define like who should be doing what, right? So when we're talking about alternative text, who should be writing it? Who should be coding it? And it maps all the different, there's a high level map at the success criteria level, and then detailed breakdown of tasks you can even use, and who has like primary responsibility and secondary responsibility. So we're really excited that that's finally out there. And again, as Kevin mentioned, this is one of the things that we have a community group that anybody can join to work on this. So there's a complete draft of WCAG 2.1. So now the focus is on adding the stuff for WCAG 2.2. And then the group is also very interested in getting people who specialize in different areas. So for example, there's about the role of user experience designers, and just to kind of go through their wording and see if it uses terminology that's familiar and things like that. So I encourage you to check out ARM, the Accessibility Roles and Responsibilities Mapping. And I'm curious, how many people before today had heard of ARM? Okay, good. So roughly about half people raised your hand. Yay, so our outreach isn't doing too bad. But that's my job. Okay. We also have a series, or several resources to help in designing and developing, and we thought that was something that this group would be particularly interested in. So I want to make sure that you're aware of all those. From the home page, the third navigation is design and develop. In the design and develop resources, we have tips for getting started with accessibility. We have tips for writing and presenting content. Another for designing, both for user interface and visual design. Another for developing, tips for markup and coding. These are about 10 tips each. We tried to keep it really short, and they're nicely illustrated and really short and succinct. So it's a really good introduction to kind of figure out what do I need to do? What are some of the types of issues that each of these roles needs to do? We have a very robust resource on making audio and video media accessible. And that one covers the things that you would expect, like description, captions, transcripts, and sign language. Also covers media players. And the other thing that this one has that not all do is, what do you need to do when you're planning the audio and video content at the very beginning? So if you're doing new stuff, what can you do early on to make it a lot easier? So for example, I'm going to describe everything I show visually, so we don't have to go back and add visual description. The other thing this one has that a lot of people find useful is, again, it starts with, first thing it starts with is, what are the user experiences of people using audio and video? So it explains that. And it also talks about the additional benefits. So sometimes people are saying, yeah, okay, I know we should do accessibility because it's the right thing to do, but I still need to convince the boss and the organization. And when you're talking about multimedia, this is a really strong case. There's a lot of additional benefits for everything we do, and those are listed in that resource. Okay, and then the other thing we have in designing and developing is we have a series of tutorials. So we have tutorials that cover things like page structure, menus, tables, forms, images. And another real popular resource is in the images tutorial, we have an alt decision tree. So it just helps you understand what kind of alternative text to have based on the type of image. And the tutorials, by the way, is one of the things that we've done some updates recently, and we plan to ramp up updating the tutorials, possibly doing additional ones. We'll see. Part of it depends on how many of you volunteer to help. All right. Cool. So those are some of the resources to help you design and develop. Another thing I want to mention is translations. We have over 35 languages, I believe, of our in translations. And from the any page, there's a link to all translations. And we have just lots and lots. And for example, we have many, many resources in Spanish. So again, if you know someone who would benefit from our existing translations, please do point them to the translations. Or if you have someone who would be interested in helping with translations, we would welcome that as well. All right. Oh, good. Right. So we left plenty of time for your questions, suggestions. If you say, hey, I really love this resource. Could you expand it a little bit, or any questions you have? Some of them we'll answer now, and some we might write down and get back to you on, but we welcome your questions now. We should have a roving microphone, and we also will take questions online. If possible, please put them in the Q&A or raise your hand instead of the chat. Okay, everyone get ready. Who can do it first? Who can raise your hand? On your mark, get set, go. Right here.
So you mentioned about you might be adding other like tutorials, like you have like the tables and all those others. What are the like suggested additions that you might include?
You said, are we open to suggestions? Or?
Well, you said you might be adding more, right?
Correct.
What would be the topics that you would like to add on that you don't currently have?
We have a list of topics. I don't know them off the top of my head. One of them I can remember, someone was really thinking it'd be really useful to have a tutorial about states, how you handle states. But that's one of the things. It definitely is one that we would need more resources to be able to do. As soon as we have resources, we go back and look at our list of potential tutorials and prioritize those.
Yeah, I use those tutorials a lot to share with developers when I'm giving feedback, so I really like them. So I was hopeful.
Well, cool. I would ask you, I mean, the other thing is, if you know of anyone who wants to help, we do have some open issues that we need to process.
Mm-hmm.
So again, if you know anyone who would like to help just processing the open issues.
How do you volunteer to do that?
You can send us a message through the WAI from the, sorry, in the participating in WAI, there's a, there's an email address to contact WAI staff. We'll probably do that through one of the community groups. So yeah, join the community group and say, I'm interested in this, and we can, get a couple of people that says they want to do it. That'll get momentum. And once we say we're going to do it, then maybe we can get more.
If, however, there's just a small change that you're looking for, all of the tutorial pages at the bottom, you'll find a raise an issue or can suggest. Feel free to do that. You don't need to join anything other than GitHub. That would be very welcome as well. I have a question back for you.
Okay.
When you're working with your developers, is there anything come up where you go, oh, I wish there was a tutorial on this?
You wish that what?
I wish there was a tutorial that covered this thing.
I don't have one off the top of my head, but I'll try to keep that in mind in the
We'd
future.
be open to those ones.
I know which ones there are, and I'm always going to them.
Yeah.
I like the keyboard areas that you guys have a lot that explain how the keyboard support should work. I think that's really helpful because a lot of times I tell them and they're like, what?
Cool.
I really like that.
Yeah, that's good. It's good too. To be honest, we have limited staff and volunteers, and so we're always trying to prioritize. So when you say, look, there's some other things, we're meeting Friday and seeing if we have to cut some things off the chopping block. So feel free to say what your favorite resource is so we keep it alive.
There was one up at the back, one over there as well.
Hi there. I have a question about browser support for accessible technologies. So there's been several different HTML tags that have lacked support. Like, for example, I'm going to use the data list as an example, like when you have an input that has autocomplete and using data list, and the fact that it's not being read out by a screen reader correctly, even though you're coding it correctly, this is an HTML problem. Same thing, like, for example, recently in the latest version of Safari, and I think this is still there's been problems in the past with just the be called drawers, like when you're using disclosures. Yeah, like when you're
Yeah, summary and
reporting
details,
the collapsed and expanded states.
Yeah.
HTML5 video, for example, it's supposed to support several different audio tracks, and there's like a browser support. Now that's browser support that hasn't been built yet, but there's two things that actually are supposed to work, and native is supposed to be the best way to code.
Yeah.
And we're still having problems in 2025 with this. I remember when CSS, this was a problem. There was this test that every browser was supposed to go for, and it sort of shamed browsers to make sure that they actually passed this test. Is there any way that you can shame browsers, browser vendors to support the things that are already ratified as part of HTML so they work correctly with whatever assistive technology? Because it is really frustrating to work around this stuff. I mean, part of my job is working around some of this stuff, and I don't like using ARIA when I don't need to. And it seems like these things are old tags that just don't work. And I just want to know, is there any initiative, any ideas or anything that you guys are planning to support? And I'm sorry for the long question, but
That's
it's been
okay.
frustrating for
I'm
us.
going to give you a short answer and then a slightly more expanded answer. And then I'm maybe going to look to somebody in the audience to maybe fill in the blanks that I've got. So yeah, there's a lot involved in the technology stack on delivering that final content to the user. So there's a lot of areas where it can go wrong. So when you say these things aren't supported, okay, is it HTML? Is it in the browser, or is it in the assistive technology? Where's the problem? And that creates kind of a bit of a challenge in terms of how you feed back to it. This isn't really, it's probably outside of our remit entirely, because it's that we create the standards that people go off and do what they will. However, feeding back to the browsers is always useful. I know I've spoken with a lot of people in the browser space, and the job that they have, I don't want, because it's really hard, and they're doing a really good job, and there's so much to consider. But yeah, feeding back into those communities, there are a number of different ways to do that. And I'm not going to kind of go through those, but have a look online, because most of them do allow for feeding back issues. Similarly with assistive technology, although I think the development cycles are slightly different there, so that makes more of a challenge. There's two areas where I think there is probably, it's one of the two things that I was quite excited about when I heard about it, and I'm going to get the names wrong, but there's the baseline testing, and is it WPT?
Web platform testing.
Web platform testing.
Yeah.
And both of those are really exciting because they kind of create a baseline set of tests that all of the browser vendors are kind of buying into and testing against. So if you are interested, if you are working in that space, and if there is something, trying to feed it into there is useful, because that then actually drives the development that's going to happen. That's another way to kind of consider that. So there's a bit of a, not our problem, but there's also a bit of a, here's some things that you might be able to do. Sean?
Yeah, so definitely check and the web platform tests that are including that. And we do talk with browsers, and we do encourage them to make improvements. And for example, we were very excited when we could retire success criteria 4.1.1. You don't have to do it anymore because the browsers take care of it. So I know my dream is that we can do that, with focus indicators and some other things. We get the browsers to take care of it, and there's less for us to do. I see there's a question back there, but Doug, did you want to comment on this point?
Yes. This is a slight follow-up.
I'm addressing
Yep.
So there's an organization called Igalia. Are you familiar with Igalia? They do development on all the browsers. They are it's a Spanish company, but they do consulting with, and they've shown a lot of interest in doing accessibility issues, fundamental accessibility issues in the past. In fact, if you know the browser, the native dialogue element, when it first got implemented, it did not control the focus into the dialogue, and Igalia was the one that drove the effort to make sure that focus remained in them. So if you're trying to organize something, talk to Igalia. It's IGALIA.
IA.
Yeah.
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 IGALIA.
And so they are an implementer and they work
Great.
across all the browsers. So that might be a good step.
Thanks, Doug.
That's very interesting. I'm glad you brought this up. I'd like to start by saying thanks you to the W3C for all the great work you've done, not just for WCAG, but all the other standards. And now my question. Correct me if I'm wrong. The 3 current versions of WCAG 2.x have been backward compatible. They've been added onto and with at least one exception taken away. But I've heard that WCAG 3.0 will be a dramatic redesign and will not be backward compatible. And could you address that?
Yes. WCAG 3.0 will not be backward compatible in the same way. It expands upon 2 in lots of different ways. I mean, the research, the original research that was conducted exploring what WCAG 2 didn't do, what opportunities were improvement, that kind of found a pile of stuff. And there's a lot of material online that talks about those research findings. If you're interested, get me later, because I can't remember it off the top of my head. The model that we're approaching with WCAG 3, though, it's kind of, we're seeking to take an outcomes-driven approach to the success criteria level. So we're trying to define it in terms of the outcome that you're looking to achieve, not what you need to do. And then there will be multiple ways that you may achieve that outcome. Now, some of those ways, and this is where it kind of plays into the previous question, to be honest. Some of those ways, it may not be the content author or the developer's responsibility. It may have been done by the platform. So, or it may have been done by AI. Or there's a variety of ways that the outcomes could be achieved very effectively and very accessibly. So by defining the outcome and then kind of exploring underneath that in terms of the requirements, we kind of open that up to be a slightly different approach to things. We're also expanding it out a little bit more. So WCAG 3 is not the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. It's the W3C Accessibility Guidelines. And that's a quite deliberate change in acronym to start thinking about, well, actually, it's not just necessarily the web. We need to be thinking it's the environment, the digital environment in which people find themselves. I mean, there's a broader challenge with that, as we all know. It's like you start off on your phone, you end up on doing a mobile, you might get called, you end up having to go to a physical environment. Service delivery cuts across multiple different channels, but we don't. We just concentrate on that. The web initially, but we're looking at, okay, well, what does that digital look like? There will still be a sort of strong emphasis on web, because we're the web group, the W3C, and so that's kind of where those requirements are trying to pitch. It's kind of addressing all of those sorts of issues, and they will deliver against the outcomes. So it's a completely different model. There's an explainer. So when we published the last draft in December, we published an update to the explainer and an update to the requirements, as well as the WCAG 3 update, draft update itself. The explainer kind of goes through a lot of this stuff and tries to talk about the rationale behind this. And it also talks about a lot of the questions we've still got. So the questions that the working group are kind of going through to try and develop the guidelines and address all the requirements that we identified. So I would encourage you to go and have a look at that. And if you've got any questions or thoughts, send them through.
And to follow up, there's one starting place we really encourage you to share for the starting place for information on WCAG 3. And I think the short URL is w3.org/WAI/WCAG 3. And that will go to this WCAG 3 introduction page, which we update as whenever we have additional information. So it has the links to the resources that Kevin was talking about. It has that summary, the answer to your first question right up there in the summary. It will have similar fundamental and specific accessibility requirements as WCAG 2. However, it will have a different structure, different conformance model, and a broader scope. So this is a place to keep out on information on that. And there's
That's
also,
nicely succinct.
thank
I
you.
like that.
Yeah. And there's also a link to timeline on there as well. So if you see anyone say, oh, we can help you meet WCAG 3 now, I'm not going to say what I think about that. Okay.
Thank you. Do you want to check if there's anything online?
Not yet. I also wanted to point to a resource that is kind of the background for some of the things we're talking about. In the accessibility fundamentals under the first nav, there's a link to the essential components of web accessibility. And this talks about kind of the background on how all this relates, right? And there's specifically, right? It's the whole ecosystem. It's the content developers, it's evaluation tools, but it's also the browsers and the assistive technologies and the standards and how all that works together. And it even points out exactly what you were saying that says, I think, here we go, right. So if one tool doesn't do their part, then it requires extra effort from other people. So this is, you know all this, but if you're trying to explain it to someone else, this might be helpful. Or if you look at this and you're like, oh, you know what? If you tweak this a little bit, it'd make my argument even stronger, then just feel free to submit a suggestion on that. Thanks.
Mark, just wanted to check if there was anything from online.
I don't think it's working.
Oh,
Okay.
it's broken.
He'll let us know. We have another question.
Yes. Hi. Thank you for the resources. I actually discovered those videos some time ago and share them with clients all the time to get that perspective. So they're amazing. I am curious because another resource that I frequently refer to are the patterns, the APG design patterns. And I think those are dubbed under WAI as well. Okay. And so they're a really great resource and sometimes kind of work together with the tutorials that you have. And I just refer to those a lot and send them out to other people as well. So I just wanted to lift those up as another resource that's would be really great in your presentation.
Great. Thank you. Yeah. So that's the APG ARIA practices guide. So it's specifically for using ARIA. Yep. Cool. Yes.
Oh, sorry. You may have to get more information because I know I saw the accessibility, for kids. And mainly this is something that has come up for me when I've volunteered and I've done a hackathon with kids that are elementary school age, and mainly resources that are focused towards K through 12. Though, I use all these resources when I'm talking to designers and developers. But it doesn't really translate, even though the language is, plain and and simple. It doesn't really translate to when you're trying to teach kids in their technology classes, because how kids are can be. And I've actually had teachers ask me about, because they'll see this, but it's still a little bit hard for them to translate because they may not know enough about digital accessibility to be able to translate these resources into something that will that their students will, digest. So that's kind of my thing. Or have you thought about doing resources that are pointed towards K through 12?
Yes.
Okay.
Two things. So the list of community groups.
Yeah.
That's fine. Doesn't matter. I know them. So there's two things. So the accessibility for children community group, I think they focus on more what are the issues of children with disabilities. So that group is more like, what do we need to do? For example, if you have a child who's deaf, but they don't read yet, right? So the captions aren't going to be, complex captions aren't going to be good. So that group focuses mostly in that space. Yes, as far as you know too. Now, the cool thing is in the what's it called? Advancing Accessibility Resources, the chair of that, Brian Elton, is working on a resource in that community group that's specifically for teaching accessibility to kids. I think what you're talking about. I think his target, the current resource is a little bit older, but that's a great place to loop in, and to expand, work on what that group is doing, and then see, okay, is that targeting, what age group is that targeting, and do we also want to do similar resources that are targeting a younger age group? And if I could get rid of all this other work, I'd love to do that with you. Yeah, I think that's so cool. I think we need to, let's see, I've almost given up on adults. So I think what we really need, to do.
That's why Sean and I get on so well.
I give up on adults. I mean, in terms of not only the technology, but also the societal approach, reaction and response integration of people with disabilities. I think if we get to the kids and get it so that their experiences are positive with people with disabilities, and that when they're learned, that they get excited and about accessibility, and when we're teaching them, coding or any of this stuff, that it's automatically included. That's not an add-on, it's just the way it is. I think that's where we need to put our attention. So I think it was someone, there are two people I get confused, so I'm not going to say their names. Anyway, that are in the accessibility field, right? Have been in the accessibility field for a long time. And one of them, his kid, I don't remember how old his child was, maybe age 3, asked for a wheelchair for Christmas present. Right? Right? Yeah. Oh, that's cool. That'd be fun. So yeah, we can make so many, it's easier changes with children. So go for it. But anyway, where I would suggest is to loop into the accessibility resources, and the chair, Brian Elton, is the one who's leading that. Cool. Did I see another question? Okay. Coming.
Hear me? I believe so. So this is related to a topic at one of the breakout sessions, and it kind of revolves around systems design. And I was curious, I noticed you had a breakout of the roles and responsibilities, and which is great. I totally plan on consuming that. But what I'm wondering is, a lot of us find ourselves in kind of the grassroots and in silos across organizations. Mm-hmm. And so I'm wondering if y'all have, or you're planning on kind of a tips or a template for how to do a journey map across maturing an organization, both in the process of doing a project, but also in terms of building a team and its influence across basically an evolution or a maturing of an organization.
And maturity.
And what?
Maturity model.
I'll let you do those, and then I'll show ARM.
Yeah, there's probably 2 resources that are related to this. One's slightly older, and it's always tricky because, so the 2 resources, one is planning and managing accessibility, which is kind of trying to give more of a strategic perspective on how to integrate accessibility and how to build in accessibility into an organization or program. There is another piece of work that's going on in one of our task forces, which is looking at the maturity model work. And that's more about assessing organizational maturity or departmental maturity for accessibility. Again, that the questions themselves almost drive kind of tips about what to do. There wouldn't necessarily be anything specific about creating a journey map about how to get from completely inaccessible, no idea how to spell the thing, up to we've got a world-class organization that does this. It's more, there's a lot of things that ideas about how you might kind of move that forward. And part of the challenge with that is it's really difficult to kind of go, here's a roadmap for any organization to go from zero to accessibility hero. So those resources might be quite useful and helpful.
And this, to get to the planning and managing, from the main navigation, and the second link goes to planning and policies. And then there's a link to this planning and managing resource.
Yep.
So what I would say is take a look at that and see, again, if you're like, okay, yeah, this is good, this is good, this is good, but it's missing this piece that I could use. Let us know. And then we'll say, good, you can volunteer to help us write it.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be great. I've seen case studies before on design systems. I'm in UX in terms of how a small design system marches its way up and across the board. Atlassian has a great one. But I'm kind of curious if there's anything like that. I mean, some sort of models that can be used or relied upon. And that may be an opportunity. That's one of the things that occurred to me at that session is, you don't want to recreate work that other people have done.
Yep.
And that is a very good use for the WAI interest group that Ashley is chair of. So it's a public list. Anybody can subscribe. Anybody can post questions. So I would encourage you, go ahead and post and say, hey, I'm looking for this. And, does anyone have any ideas? Because that way you'll get, you'll reach a wide range of people. Okay. Other questions? Let me show ARM. ARM is also in planning and policies. And we'll have time for one more question and then we'll wrap. We have a bit of news for you to wrap up. Okay. Question.
Thank you. There are a number of kind of captioning standards about kind of how they're displayed, line length, a lot of things like that. And then a lot of vendors have their own, and some of those are public, some not. Is that ever an area that would be considered as like a standard or, from a more authoritative source?
So the WCAG, as you know, includes the requirement to include standards under certain conditions.
Include captions.
Sorry, captions. We've not got so within WCAG 2, there's nothing that says how those should be included or what form they should take or format or anything like that. WCAG 3, the exploration of captions will probably look at that and look at, okay, is there more that needs to be done there? Is it enough to just say captions needed in this case? So that is something that will be looked at, or has been, or is going to be looked at in WCAG 3. I'm vague because it's not a subgroup that I've tapped into yet. Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at with that one.
Mark, did you have one? Yeah.
Well, we don't have questions, but we have a couple of comments I'd share with you. Tiffany says, I use and like the alt text tutorial. And Russell says, I love the W3C ARIA design patterns.
Good,
Cool.
good feedback.
Thank you, Tiffany and Russell.
Good feedback. Okay. Let me show you, well, anything else? I don't want to cut anyone off. We'd love to. Okay, let me just show you ARM really quickly, and then we'll give you some news and some next steps. So as I said, in ARM, there is the, it defines the roles in accessibility. So in this, it has a breakdown of different roles, design roles, development roles, testing roles. And again, we welcome your input on any of those. Then there's the high level mapping of each success criteria to whether it's in business, content authoring, visual design, user experience, or front-end development. And then there's also an option where a mega table that breaks it down by different tasks. One of the questions on this is we're wondering if people can like to download the spreadsheet, or if you'd want for us to have more filtering options. So there's lots of resources there, and as you can see, lots of opportunities for you to contribute. How many people know about our free online course? Okay, maybe a quarter. Good. So you're learning something. We have a free online course. Yeah, so the whole thing is available for free. You can actually pay. You can, if you want a certificate, you can do. There's a paid option for a certificate. It gets $99. The course is it's designed for technical and non-technical learners. It's designed so that you can focus on like the topics you're interested in and breeze through the other topics. So there's different modules on different topics. And the big news is we're updating the course. So it's available now, but we're in the process of updating it, and we're going to split it into 2 courses. So the first course will be designed so it applies to everybody. And I mean everybody. So it's not just going to be about web development, it's going to be about digital accessibility overall. And so we'll use examples, we'll have examples that apply whether you are doing a word processing doc or a presentation or a website or a mobile app or anything. So we hope that everybody will take that no matter what your role. And then we're splitting out the more specifics on WCAG on the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, splitting that into a separate course. And then we may develop additional courses, for example, on evaluating accessibility. So go ahead and take a look at the free course now, and you can decide if you want to get everyone to take that version or wait until we split it up so that you can take the one that's the simple, the basic one if someone's not interested in the details of WCAG. The WCAG one will have the other one as a prerequisite. So yeah, let us know, encourage everyone to take that. And we will announce that we're cranking away on that right now, and we hope to have it done in a couple months. And when we do, we will announce it on our WAI announce list. So if you're not subscribed to the WAI announce list, I strongly recommend that you do that. Just WAI announce. Anyone can subscribe to it. To get the link to that and our LinkedIn and our Mastodon, if you say Get WAI News, if you look to search for Get WAI News or on the website, it's at the top and the bottom as well. The WAI announce list we keep very minimal. So I only send a couple messages a month, so it's so that there's not a bunch of junk on there, and we will announce the new courses on the WAI announce list. Okay, the other thing is we thank you very much for your questions. We encourage you to come talk with us some more. So all day tomorrow, at least from 10 to 3, probably before and after as well. Kevin and I will be in trustee room 205. So, pop in for a chat, ask more questions, share some more information. We also have some resources that are in progress. And we'd love it if you want to sit down and give us some feedback on those in progress resources so you can get a peek at some of those things that we're working on. Or if you're remote and you want to schedule a remote meeting, you can send an email to WAI@w3.org. Great. So thank you very much for your time today, and hope to talk to you tomorrow.
We would appreciate any feedback too. There's a QR code on the screen. You can also find the feedback survey at nobility.org/surveys. We would greatly appreciate your feedback about this presentation. Thank you.